Now I have to mute this. Here we go. Okay, we should be broadcasting on YouTube and live here.
Okay. Do we have to open it like we do any other meeting?
Right, wow.
Yes. Call it to order. Adjourn the meeting. No, open the meeting. Sorry, half asleep. What we've had a couple conversations and a little more regrouping on stuff. I think my sense is you were talking to Deanne about insurance / retirement stuff.
So we would have to, in order to contribute to a retirement account, we would have to open our own 403B plan, which the cost of that would be probably about $3,000 a year. So it might not be feasible. Employers cannot directly contribute to an IRA for an individual. So the retirement option is not really feasible, I don't think, to contribute. I know I think we were looking at the $5,000 insurance cost that we were looking to give DM, and we were just looking at other options. So there's no benefit in necessarily the insurance side or the retirement side that's feasible for us to contribute to. So unfortunately, if there was another organization who had a 403B that we were a part of that we could join, Mid-Hudson or somewhere else, that could be an option.
What
That
about
would
what about that?
New York, well, I don't know, you.
Yeah, I didn't do that. There's the New York. Just a minute. It's the nonprofit.
Profit. NICOM.
Yeah, New York Coalition of Nonprofits, something like that. That's when we look for health insurance. I don't know about I didn't even think about them.
Yeah, if they have a 403B set up that we could become a part of, because we can't set one up and necessarily offer out our own. The fees and the tax return and all of that kind of stuff involved in setting up your own is just going to be cost prohibitive. The advantage of that would be we could contribute on behalf of any employee, but any employee could also contribute for themselves, which would be obviously a benefit. It's just like a 401k, but just different because nonprofits.
We set that up collaboratively with Stanford, Rojan,
absolutely,
Northeast Millerton.
Yep, absolutely. And I talked to the financial advisor that I use through work, and he said, yeah, you could pool it together, but the larger it is, the more expensive it is too. So if collectively you have $50,000, in the retirement accounts total, your fees aren't going to be as high as if all of a sudden now one person is putting in, maxing out with the 26,000 a year or whatever it is. Over the course of 5 or 6 years, it could get substantially more expensive. The admin side of it is honestly just a lot of work. That's what I do for like my job, and it is a lot. So
the truth is, if it's already set up for, that's the easiest way to go than us saying we should start a group one. Because usually those things are set up like with a brokerage house. So so whether it's Fidelity or whatever, like your account would then be with Fidelity, but they would be
Mid-Hudson doesn't have that as a system.
That's why it's surprising. Yeah.
66 libraries. That seems like something that would be really beneficial for them to organize.
When I brought that up at a meeting one time, they said, Rebecca said it was so expensive for them to do it that they couldn't do it.
Because again, when you have 66 libraries, now they're all contributing, it adds up. So plus you have to file, you're paying the fees through Fidelity or Vanguard or whoever, plus you're paying for a TPA, a third-party administrator, to do the tax return and the management of all of it. It's just the admin side of it, it's a lot. And that, if there's a way to make it work, it's worth it, absolutely. But the cost involved in it is just gonna slowly add up the more money people put into it. So that's how they work. So even if we were pooling together with like 4 or 5 other libraries, there's a good chance it would still cost us, $2,000 a year
Right.
to manage. An IRA would be, for Deanne's perspective, an IRA would be better for her. You can't contribute as much, but unfortunately, an employer just can't contribute to that for her.
Well, we can't contribute directly to
Directly,
it.
but we could increase, and
Right.
we could say, we're just gonna add the 5,000 to her salary, and then she can contribute or do whatever she would like with it.
Right.
That's definitely possible. The only downside of that is then she pays taxes on that 5,000, as
Right.
opposed to a direct contribution as tax
Deferred.
deferred.
What about a deferred compensation plan?
Those are also very costly. So I do have one of those. So where I work right now, we have a like a defined benefit plan, which was basically a pension that the employers contributed, but the cost of that is so substantial. And then by the time it's those are even more complicated, and they're not most companies aren't doing them anymore from what I've understood, but the cost involved in them, you still have to file a tax return for them. You still have to, have somebody managing it.
Could Marguerite use a deferred compensation plan for her medical?
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
She just took $75 out of every paycheck and sent it to Albany, or wherever.
That's possible for a medical plan. I don't know how that would work.
Wouldn't work for us. They've changed a lot of stuff since Marguerite was doing it. I think the tax laws and stuff, which I can't.
I looked into the retirement side of it with the financial advisor, but I didn't look into, because Deanne does have health insurance. Sorry, I don't want to talk like you're not in the room, Deanne, but because you do have health insurance, that's not something that we can necessarily cover. But there were other options. There's little things that could add up. Like we could reimburse for cell phone bills and reimburse for, a computer or little things like that, but they're not going to add up to be that substantial of what we were looking to do. Those are all tax free as well. So your employer reimburses your cell phone if they give you a credit every month. That's not taxable. So any sort of reimbursements. That's all I kind of came up with. And I did the other portion of what I looked into was I talked to the Bank of Millbrook investment team for, they said, go with it. They didn't say go with a big bank, but it was implied that it's a $250,000 minimum to make it worth it for us with them. So they would be happy to do it, but that would realistically be the minimum for us to get any sort of return that would be worth it. So. We could do CDs through them. That would be another option. But again, I think the rates elsewhere would be better.
Yeah, I think with CDs, there are better rates out there.
Yeah.
I know we were thinking we wanted to stay as local as possible, but if we're really aiming at return right now, and we have to.
I did look at Mid Hudson, and I think their CD is like $200,000 was the minimum for like a decent return. Anything lower than that, just
Hudson. I was looking at Hudson
And they
Valley
were-
Credit Union as well, and they I was looking for my mother, and it's like if you put in 50,000, you get a better rate.
Why wouldn't you do it?
Do we have enough to do like a ladder of some sort? Like, or just put a chunk in? It locks it in. I mean, if it's, I was looking for on the personal side, not the business side, for my mother, so I don't know what their business side is. We can certainly reach out to them.
And then the other thing I saw was most of them were for a 1-year term as opposed to 3 to 6 months. I know a lot of places offer 3 to 6 months, but what I saw on their website was 1 year was kind of like the minimum. But
For Mid-Hudson?
For Mid-Hudson, yeah. And then the fees involved in it too. The understanding I had was there's a lot of bigger banks that'll do money market accounts for us that have really good returns, and there's no fees. So some of the bigger banks just might. Exactly. Yeah.
Is there a Citibank up here or is it just Chase?
Just Chase.
But even the savings banks have decent rates. Ulster savings is very good.
Mhm.
Or you mentioned Green County, I don't know
I
about
don't
that.
know, I would have to
Do
look.
we have to keep money in New York?
I don't know.
What about
so-
NBT and Tickfell?
Okay.
I mean, it's like way out of my comfort zone, but, just another. thing,
There's a
but-
branch
Right.
in Millerton.
Yeah.
So
Nikon doesn't offer anything like that.
Mhm.
The
Actually a nonprofit.
Nikon.
the nonprofit association doesn't offer anything
No.
like that. No.
I can reach out to them.
Thank you, Green County.
Yeah, under businesses, they also have a nonprofit group section specifically on their website, so they may, I can reach out to them and see.
Nice.
I'll look at SAT.
My initial thought, Ted, the lodge account that we have, that money has to stay within the Bank of
The
Millbrook.
large account has to stay. That's why I suggested
Right.
you could move it
Mhm.
within
Into
the
a
bank and then
Mhm.
move it whatever you want to do it.
I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah.
that.
Why does it have to stay in that way?
That's how it was set up because it was a donation.
May have been like a restricted.
Mhm.
And at the time, the person donating it they were involved in the bank, right? It's not that.
It's a long, tedious story.
It has to stay in the Bank of Millbrook. Got it.
The other thing that Ted and I briefly discussed is we need to find a new CPA to do the annual report at the end of the year, which
With the state control.
for the state comptroller, yeah. Which Deanne may have an option for, but
He and I worked on we had the same name and that won't work out. So
Okay.
I've got another one it works for another library and then I'll find out from somebody else on
Yeah.
next week what.
and I'm happy to talk to them with you if you want me to.
I thought you had some connections.
I
too.
do. So the accountant I use is like a national, like they're from a national firm. So Deanne was going to reach out to some other local libraries to find
Somebody
local. They're based out of Hartford, Connecticut. So, and I think they would have no problem being able to do it. But the other option I have is based out of Hudson, New York. But again, they're a team as opposed to an individual. So I think the costs might be a little bit higher, but I can definitely ask.
My
Doesn't hurt.
accountant is in Rhinebeck and I don't know whether you'd be willing to do it, but.
We've got options. There's
Mhm.
libraries that use there's CPAs that are trained for libraries. So we can easily find somebody
Yeah.
that can. work
Wouldn't
on
be
this.
Grady by any chance.
No,
Okay.
no, Tim. Oh, I don't even remember right now. I have his email.
10B account.
Okay, so these were there's a sheet, that did, sorry, Patrick, that we can't show it to you. It says the numbers that we had talked about last time. We need to, again, we need to get closer to set on the payroll number. I think if we had talked about adding the 5,000 to the insurance number for Deanne, I think we need to at least budget that to her salary at this point. So that's gonna get added in. I don't know if that's in this number here. As we kept going back and forth. I have
So the other portion of that for Deanne's, are we gonna talk about that now, or do you want to? So the other portion is the minimum for a non-exempt employee, just kind of like the minimum wage for salaried individuals.
Right.
Need to take that one into account too, which I,
for Annie.
for both of them.
Both of them?
Yeah.
So Deanne wasn't enough for even for that?
So the salary threshold for New York State for employees. The
High.
rest of the city, it jumps. Even, even this year it jumped. It was New York City, the state, no, upstate. It was 58,000 for 2024, and it goes up to $60,405.80.
Which would mean we'd have to keep Annie as non-exempt.
Non-exempt,
Okay.
which means she would be
Eligible
eligible for
for
overtime.
overtime.
And in 2026, it jumps even higher to 62,363. So.
Okay.
They're based on hours.
It's based on, so it's for salaried employees, whether they are paid overtime or not paid overtime.
What
So-
determines it?
40 hours a week. So I guess there's different, it depends if they are considered a professional employee, which I think is where this would fit in. Let me pull up my work email. So I just sent explaining all of it.
Just shuffle around.
Exempt versus not exempt. So an exempt employee is not eligible to receive overtime pay. They're excluded from the minimum wage requirements, but they have to meet a certain. Trying to think of the easiest. There's so many different things.
Let me rephrase the question.
Yeah.
If she assigned 40 hours and does not go over the 40 hours,
Then there's nothing wrong with that. As long as they're working 40 hours or less per week, then that's fine. If they are not at the $60,000 mark and they go over 40 hours, legally we have to pay them overtime.
so then you want to make sure that she stays
That they're
at
under
40
40 hours.
hours.
Exactly. Yeah. That's kind of the workaround, but I know that Deanne hasn't been able to stay under 40 hours. So that's just the concern from a legal perspective, not that she's necessarily tracking her hours.
Right.
And
They are tracking the hours.
they are,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, they are,
Okay.
they're tracking. The question is, has Annie then also keep saying? Has the other person been staying under?
So it's part of like the Fair Labor Standards Act so you can't just say minimum wages for hourly employees. There's technically a minimum wage for salaried employees as well as the easiest way to look at it. There's other requirements to be a salaried employee. It's not just, oh, we're going to put you on salary and not worry about it. You have to be in charge of certain people. You have to have experience, like a professional capacity that you're working in. There's, job duties that kind of have to go along with it in order to be salaried, which I think both the director and the assistant director are falling under completely fine, but it's the salary that we're have to look at.
Why don't you just make the 40 hours? That's it.
That makes sense to me. Yeah. But at the same time, we just have to make sure that that's what everybody agrees to, I guess. But they don't work more than 40 hours a week. Which is easier said than done.
Okay, I'm sorry, Patrick, I just emailed you a scan of the document that we're working from.
If we did, we would be required to put them up track.
So I've been keeping track of my hours and I've basically worked 6 days a week. And if we talk about staffing, and we think about staffing in a different way, I'm thinking we can probably work around this so that we only work 40 hours a week. It may be, but part of the problem is we don't have any volunteers because of the requirement to have 2 people up here. And I totally think we need to have 2 people up here at all times, 2 staff people. And even when the library's closed and we have classes after that, we still need to, I feel like we still need
I
to have
don't-
2 people.
I mean, if there were volunteers, they would count as a body.
Correct.
Yeah.
But we don't have any
Yeah.
volunteers right now. All
Okay.
of all, they've
Oh, they've
disappeared.
all
They've
gone.
all gone. We have no volunteers. So even if somebody were sitting, then that would be fine. We could supplement our labor with volunteers.
Mhm.
But until we can, we're stuck with what we have. And again, we lost Lily, so that we're down to just 3 of us
Mhm.
again until we hire again. Did y'all know that? Code know that? Yeah, okay. But if there were a concerted effort to get a few volunteers who could regularly sit with Annie or me or whatever during our after hours things, we could do that. And we could also, I think Mercy would like some more hours. So Mercy could take the 3 to 6 shift or something instead of the 3 to 5. And then that would allow one of us to leave early or things like that. But the goal for me would be for all of us to have 2 days off in a row, if we could, sporadic throughout the week. But at this point, we can't do that. But that's, if we had some more volunteers who could be warm bodies to sit up here, that would be fine.
What if you were to cut out Monday again?
That would
I'd
be,
rather not do that.
that's a possibility, but yeah.
I mean, it's definitely,
Rather not do it either, but.
it's a good
sounds like-
idea, but I
That's
mean,
the-
if we can. So when Alexis was here, was she just consistently working more? Was she just consistently working 60 hours a week and not reporting it? Is that what was happening?
She was also flexing her time a little bit. She would go work out and would take 3 hours off in the middle of the day or something like that. It wasn't just, I mean, she was working a full, definitely. She may have been overworking as well.
Yeah, but she had volunteers as well that would sit and do some
Yeah,
things,
no, I
so-
remember.
So did they got tired of doing it and they just stopped showing up?
Well, some had medical problems, but since I've started, there haven't been any volunteers in that vein to just come up here and work a shift or something.
And is there a possibility of working with the school to use that as part of their required community service, or is that they're too young for you?
No, they're fine, but they only need 5 hours. Some of them only need,
In total?
yeah, it's not,
It's
and
really,
it's not that
Okay.
much, so it's not something that would be.
and then they do
consistent.
it and they're done and they don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
Unfortunately.
we have one that stayed. One of our volunteers has stayed, and he's enjoying it, so he's staying.
Okay, good.
But
I think he's enjoying working with the kids
Yeah.
too, though. I think that's a big part of it.
Yes.
I've experienced this on after school programs because my 11-year-old who's in 7th grade is now coming to the after school program because he likes being able to play chess and being able to play games with him. And so I think it's harder to find a volunteer just to sit behind the desk, probably.
Yeah. I
But-
mean, if I look at my kids, they'd rather just work with kids too.
Yeah.
so I don't have a solution to this problem. Unless Annie and I have to sit together and figure out if there's certain parts of the day that somebody can be alone when it's quieter, like when the library first opens. I don't necessarily agree with that, but
And I'm not saying that it's wrong to have 2 people here, but is it a safety reason? Is
Yes.
that why we want 2
Yes.
people here?
yes.
And why do we think that it is a safety risk for one person to be here?
We have,
I'm just asking the question. I don't
there are
have an
valid, there are
opinion.
valid
Yeah.
reasons.
Okay.
There are valid reasons. We have, patrons,
There's
would
a
present
number
a
of people
challenge.
who come even after school. I've seen a number of people just come through, not really interested in being in the library, but maybe just want a cup of coffee or want a cup of tea, do a little loop around
Okay.
and then leave. And then
Okay.
10 minutes later, they do the same thing.
Okay.
And I would say that from my perspective, I wouldn't want to be here alone. when
Okay.
yeah.
I just wanted. I
No,
was just curious.
I didn't really notice it until this past week, I think. And I think that I've just, there's a lot of people who just wander through because it's a free, safe place to come.
Right.
And
Mhm.
it's tricky.
Yeah, I completely understand now.
And it can be overwhelming if you've got
Yep.
patrons in the
Mhm.
computer and then
Yep,
and
yep.
you're by yourself trying to do 6 different things. So just from a safety standpoint, from a management standpoint.
Are there hours in the morning that you don't have much activity?
So Wednesday is interesting. I need to go back and look at the numbers, but I don't know that opening early is doing us any favors right now. I think the 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, there's a story time in there, but it's, I get 1 or 2 kids max, maybe a month on that. And I don't think that is doing us any favors.
Right.
If it was a goal of the previous board to have early hours for some people and then late hours for other people, so that we would.
But they're not, the 10 to 12 is not early enough to satisfy the before work needing to drop something
No,
off,
I
pick
don't-
something up.
It's
Um,
sporadically used. I can look up the attendance. We can see, but if I
Right.
were to if I were to reduce hours, it would be those two. It would be those 2
Right.
hours. I don't think it's getting us anything.
And is that enough? Is that
That's not enough
That's
to
not
really
enough.
make enough, but it would at least, it would
What about Thursday night?
unstress a little bit. We've got a lot of
Thursday
stuff
nights are
going
busy.
on.
Thursday
Thursday
nights are
night.
we're packed.
Yeah.
We're absolutely packed.
There's 3 different events.
We
three
leave at
different
5
things
o'clock.
that
I
go
think we
on.
left at 5 o'clock for this past Thursday. The after school thing ends at 4:30, but I think by the time we left, it was 5 o'clock, and there were probably 10 people in here.
And then we got
Yeah.
more because we have the English class going on at 6, and then we have our Fibronauts. I had 5 people show up to
Mhm.
Fibronauts, and then there were kids playing in the kids' room. It was
Yeah,
was
so-
packed.
Honestly,
And then
this
the
past week
D&D
especially, it's been
people
packed
come
in
in,
here
don't,
from
is that
At 4 o'clock.
Thursday?
Thursday.
That's
4
at 4?
I think a lot of kids are coming for the programming too. I think it's finally starting to really pick up and have a
Yes.
steady
Yeah.
flux of
So awesome.
kids coming in.
Yes.
But then there are also the events of other people coming too.
So the Thursday's been a wonderful, wonderful experiment.
What would be the cumulative total of hours you have to cut?
Me?
Not, well. us
You
collaboratively.
staffing.
But I'm asking because
For
you're the first on
staffing
the
issues,
ground.
yeah.
To make,
To make enough difference in the schedule to
keep
to
everyone
release
happy.
some of the pressure.
Say 6, 8.
no, I don't want to cut. I want to reschedule. So if we bring people in, okay, the Wednesday mornings, I don't think we're doing much good with Wednesdays. If we consistently opened at noon, that would be fine. And we have one late night, that's fine. But that's just 2 hours. I want to consider hiring more people instead of cutting out. So instead of having, and I'm rethinking the youth director again, the youth programmer, because honestly, with this Baker and Taylor program that I found out about, that they set out the most popular books,
Mhm.
and you automatically get them every month. You have your budget, you tell them what you want, and then they just automatically send it to you. That would help me figure out the youth books that we need to get, the books for
So you
the
can
youth.
say you went for young adults.
Right, we can just automatically, and I don't have, their expertise is the one that's showing what the most popular books are because they can see the
Or
demand.
there's kids' books as well?
Right, yeah, you can do all of that.
Yeah.
It's, what I learned from lunch the other day with Rhiannon was astonishing.
Is that a already provided service or?
It's a service they offer. I
And
didn't
you pay for it?
understand.
Is it additional or?
No,
You
it's
just have
part
to
of
buy
it.
the books.
Yep.
You have to agree to
Really?
buy what they send you. So hopefully you set
Right.
it up correctly. Yeah, a lot of publishers do that. You can get into trouble if you get, like, if you give them the wrong guidelines.
Right.
You know, like you can really get awry pretty
You can
fast.
tell them
Like,
exactly the authors that you want because you know what your patrons want. You can tell them the genre, or you can tell them whatever. There's all parameters. I know I've just started looking at it, but we can do that, and that would satisfy the need that I think that we have for getting the correct and
Yeah, well, I
appropriate
mean,
books for our youth.
They have the data,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
mean, you know, it's
Makes
always
sense.
better to use the robots, you know.
Because what I have to do is scour podcasts or magazines or things like that and see what the buzz is about, and that's time that I don't have.
yeah.
Honestly, the Week Junior magazine that my kids
Oh,
get every week, it tells you like, here's the top 5 books of the week. So like
Yeah.
that, you know, they just probably use some,
Yeah.
you know, robot that tells them exactly what's selling and
Yeah.
the most popular
Yeah.
and, but then it gives a blurb about each book, which, you know, might just be helpful to help then promote the books or things like that as well. And I'm sure
Yeah.
Baker and Keller would do something similar.
But I'm looking at what the status is of new books that are coming out,
Mhm.
and you can see what's on order, what's the demand, things
Mhm.
like that. But I wouldn't have to do that
Yeah.
because
Yeah,
the thing is already
absolutely.
done. So
I think that's
so
what's
there's cost cutting and time cutting things that we can do, but I would think that the most efficient way to keep patrons happy and keep us safe would be to increase our staff. But increase them in such a way that
It doesn't cost us any more money.
Well,
That's, there's the thrust.
That's what volunteers.
I think,
Well-
I think we're gonna have, we need a now plan and then a plan for next year's budget going into elections
Right.
season next year.
right.
Yeah.
We can't, with our current numbers, we're fixed on the outside edge of it. And if we're gonna bump into, the reserve funding, which, you know, if we have to, we have to. But we can't just keep satisfying it with hiring more people.
Right.
We need to find a way to recruit those volunteers.
And we also can't keep overworking you.
Yes,
That's another part of it.
Yeah.
is-
I
yeah,
won't-
no, and we need you to do other things.
Well, to that end,
That is, you know,
we're starting to work on that grant. I turned in the seed. It's not much, but I turned in the seed grant application. I'm working on that one.
there's
Uh,
ALA grant.
Yeah, that's due December 11th. That would be a big one. That's $20,000. But anyway, the point is, if we use Jordan as much as possible, which she's agreed to,
Right.
then if we bump up to however much I don't know what the new rules are for part-time, if she can keep her up to that, and she's happy to work full-time, she's happy to work as much as she can.
And
And-
well, I should talk about it, I guess, with the,
Well, it's a-
I just don't want to, we've already named
We've
this
got the
person,
yeah,
so I don't
got
want
the
to.
YouTube
I
on.
don't-
Okay.
So if we're gonna
Yeah.
Everything-
get more in depth
Yeah.
about this stuff, we should go into executive session.
So we have staff now that can work as much as possible. That's what, let me just put it that way. And it's a good staff, and we're very pleased with the performance of everyone. So
Mhm.
we can do a lot with that, but it would be beneficial if we had a few volunteers who would come in and sit with people at the end of the shift, or just
And how many hours were each of the clerks?
20. Well, they were alternating, but it averaged out to 20,
20 total,
20 a week. Yeah, 20 a week.
so 10 each.
No, I'm sorry.
So 40 total.
Yes.
Okay, so you can essentially replace you can have one
clerk.
full-time, which would cost you the same amount. Okay, and that person is good, so I think we should do that.
Just make her full-time.
Just make her
We
them
can do that.
full-time.
That's what I was thinking. We could do
Yeah.
that.
And then you can schedule them exactly how you want as well.
Right.
So it would help us, if that's the case,
Mhm.
what would help us most as well is to have volunteers on Saturday to help us with that 4-hour shift.
Mhm.
Because as it is, Annie and I are rotating. We're all taking a shift on a weekend every month. But if we had somebody to help us just sit for 4 hours on Saturday, just to have that other person there, that'd be awesome. Because it varies. Saturdays are not heavy. But people do come in and pick up their books from the city on the weekends, so it's important to have those hours. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. Gary was if we could do that.
This is the next question is how do we identify, are there people we have to apologize to ask them if they want to come back, or
It
we
may have
need
been
to figure out what the next solution to getting volunteers.
Can we include that in part of our annual appeal? We're looking for annual appeal and volunteers and
Well, we
board
can
members. And
in the newsletter. We
Yeah.
can do that, but I think it was burnout. I think maybe some burnout because Sandy was a volunteer as well, and I think people just wanted, they get tired of it or something.
Right.
But
Or if we could get two that we can alternate on Saturdays or something like that.
are we gonna? Maybe there's some students that were having fun that would come and do it.
Or what about, so for a student, we have to pay them minimum wage as well?
But I mean, anybody as young as 14.
Right, so
You know,
what if you were
14 is
just to
the legal
hire,
age.
what, I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of kids in
Mhm.
this town who need jobs.
Definitely.
So what if you were to hire, and I know I'm not like trying to like spend more and more money, but what if we were to
Minimum
hire
wage.
someone, a kid, a student for every Saturday for 4 hours,
Mhm.
you know, so they're gonna make less than $100 a time, but it's significant for them.
Absolutely.
And maybe that's a solution as well. If you have some enthusiastic, and maybe it's this person that you already have. I mean, who knows? But
Whether he'd be
So
willing
they
to
can
do it.
corral the kids. And
yeah,
take
someone that's, you know,
some
and also
burden
like this
off.
is great to have on your call to talk about this for college. It's really good. And so
I do think that one of the reasons why Willow Roots gets so many volunteers is because it's twice a month for 2 hours. That's all. Like
Mhm.
that's all you have to do.
Right.
Volunteer. And I think that we get a lot of people who come back every time because it's really low maintenance, you know, volunteer
Right.
work. And I think that if we were to do it, you know, if we hired 2 people in that position every other Saturday, come in for 4 hours,
Yeah.
I think that would be an easier sell than a kid having to give up every Saturday afternoon for 4 hours or every Saturday
Right.
morning for 4 hours.
Yeah.
But if there's a way we could advertise that at the school as well with, you know, some of the,
Is
you know,
there a job board or
the
something?
one
I don't know
kid
what they
who's been
do.
in here who likes being here, you know, maybe he would want to work
Yeah.
every other Saturday afternoon for minimum wage and, you know, kind of thinking,
Was it 10 to 2?
10 to 2.
or even if it's, you know, after school for 4 hours and that lets somebody else, you know, whatever you end up being able to do, but
That's what's going to take.
if we were promoting someone from part-time to full-time, they would be eligible for the same benefits that, you know, everybody else is as well.
Yeah.
That's,
That's
yeah, I was
standard,
gonna say
isn't it?
that's the other thing is that if we're making her full-time, then yeah.
32 hours is the
It's
threshold or
32 hours.
36.
so what if we made that person 30 and then we filled the remaining 10 with the
Was to see if we can hire a couple high school kids.
high school kids?
To take
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That way we don't go down the benefits.
I mean, the
I
benefits are
know
just paid time
with
off.
Yeah, we don't have benefit. I mean, other than paid time.
There's-
It's just paid time off?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so then it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
They get that now.
I feel like,
Yeah, it's not worth it. I was good, right? I was.
no, yeah, that's,
Yeah.
Well, they get the-
that's
they-
where my mind went,
Yeah,
like the cost of
Yeah,
employees
yeah,
starts
no,
adding
yeah,
up. and-
Okay, so, yeah.
But we do have, the only thing, they get vacation. I mean, it's basically
Okay.
time off. That's
Yeah.
it.
But if, I mean, that, I think that's
Okay,
fine.
so we need to. Yes, we can use some of these numbers, I think from. For these two added together as the new salary number. Were they getting different hourlies?
No.
No, they were, if one was different, it was because they were, we had it so that one would work more hours
Oh,
because they would
okay,
work a
right.
Saturday and then, the other, they would trade off every month.
Well, they were getting 16.
Yeah,
But they have
that's,
to get
I'm sorry,
7.
that's the rate.
17 is the new rate.
I don't think so.
1650.
1650. Wait, that's the new minimum, right?
Yeah,
Is that the new?
that's
Yeah.
the minimum
25.
wage.
25.
Is that what the clerks are getting paid?
The clerks are getting paid
So I
16.
wrote 17 next to that.
Yeah, I think that's what
Yeah, I think we were saying
agreed.
like.
Yes.
this year
Oh, I
go
think
up
you're saying, yeah, go up to 17 for that,
Clerk 17.
Right, so if we're gonna have,
pages is what they're called. The
Right.
pages are the students that would help us out.
And they're at 1650.
They're at 16, they'll go up to 16.
Yeah.
And then the clerks, we said 17 for 20 hours a week. And then the youth programmer, we're gonna take out.
I don't think we should take the youth program
No,
out, but that'll be, but I don't know that we need to go up to the 20 that we had before. I'm looking at what other libraries are doing and, basically we would need the same thing and they're paying in the 17 to 18 range.
Okay. Would it make sense to put them at the same as the clerks or higher than the clerks?
Maybe so, if we're at 17, yeah, it depends on their experience, I would say, we might be able to go to 18, if they really bring a lot of stuff,
Mhm.
then maybe 20, but I'm not.
I think we should start, like, aim to pay them 18. I would like to build in like a slight
Yeah,
hierarchy
absolutely. Yeah.
in the salary,
Yeah.
so if we got the high school kids are gonna be earning 1650, like, we're in a compressed,
Yeah,
you know,
you're right.
zone nowadays.
Are there any youth programmers locally within the system that already work somewhere part-time?
Yeah.
That could come on board here, doing the same job title for a similar rate?
That's an interesting question. Most of, in this area, Millerton has one. Most of the libraries do have one, but
Right.
they're they're about at 20 hours a week, I would say. But that's an interesting thought that we would be poaching.
Well, we're not coaching.
I know.
It's a job fair.
I
It's a job fair.
Job share.
I mean, if they're really good.
Well, and also like, it's not, I mean, it basically, they're just replicating exactly what they've already done somewhere else. So it's not even, it's more time spent, but it's not more thinking really, right? It's,
Mhm.
So,
The timing of it might be hard because most of the programs.
Programs
like,
are all
Yeah.
the same, it's time.
Yeah, they-
but it doesn't
But-
necessarily, but maybe they don't have to execute the program. They just have to provide
Development.
yeah.
provide what needs to happen and then, you know, someone else can run it.
I almost need the
Clerk
expert,
number one.
Yeah.
I almost need the person that can execute it. And then, because I can think of the stuff that we need to do. For instance, that legit grant, there's a whole slew of workshops I've got planned out for next year
Mhm.
that we need to do
Right,
for that.
right.
But anyway,
Well, and maybe that could be Millerton has a ton of volunteers. Rojan has a ton of volunteers.
Mhm.
So maybe if a youth programmer from one of those other libraries, they could execute the program here and switch up their process there. That would be the poaching part. But
let me think about that. I
I think
honestly,
we're gonna have to work on that.
we may be able to find somebody that we could be our own,
Mhm.
that would fit what we need in the time that we need. But that is an interesting thought.
Have we advertised for a youth program?
Not yet, because
Yeah.
I've been looking at all the
Mhm.
characteristics and I have not had time to do it, but I've got all of them all. I've been looking at what all the other libraries are advertising for, and it's pretty much what we need as well. So there's
Okay.
a lot of openings right now for youth programmers. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but they're just opening, there's a lot of openings.
So go back to school. Where they,
Norfolk has a good youth program. I mean, that's not really Mid Hudson, but
I know LaGrangeville's opening has, no, I can't remember. There's several that have, Beekman, they've had some openings and there's a lot of shuffling around apparently. But I'll start advertising for sure.
it'd be interesting to discuss it with other librarians as to what they think is driving that shuffle. Like,
yeah.
you know.
That was also inferred at the Mid Hudson Library breakfast the other day.
What, that there's
A
shuffle.
lot of shuffling.
Yeah.
Mhm.
She mentioned that twice in different people that she was speaking about.
I-
Oh, these people just recently moved on, and these people recently moved on to bigger libraries or whatnot.
I mean,
Well,
I
often
don't
they
know,
move on to bigger libraries, so they get a bigger salary.
Or other nonprofits.
Sure.
We pay our programmer who only works 8 hours over the summer, flat rate, and for 8 weeks, she does 1 day a week on site, and we pay her very, very well. Because, you know, she's doing great programming that's bringing people here, and it's like, it gives you,
We need to actually start making progress.
the more you pay people, I think.
Right.
The more you, yeah, you do it.
So I think we're gonna have to reshuffle these salary numbers quite a bit right now. So the 17 or the 170 isn't really gonna be it. I had a number written down for the professional fees. We did the accountant. Is that the Nelson job? What is, you were saying he needs, you and I had a quick conversation and I don't remember what we said. He needs,
I have 3,300 down listed as budgeted for this year.
Right, and then I think you and
But
I
that's not-
talked. We also have the GTM.
3,200 budgeted for the 2024 year and an increase to 3,300 for next year. That's what I have written down, but those are,
Right, but
That's what I have to.
my guess was that wasn't enough for,
But
for
that was-
Nelson, was it?
Well, Nelson, you probably figure 10, $15 more.
Okay,
So,
oh, so
150?
10 with a hundred would be enough. And then the GTM that's going up to, had we included that?
You have to figure GTM with the increase you're just gonna give them.
The 1350,
It's
yeah.
about 115 a month,
Okay,
115. Let's see, that,
And
yeah,
it's
that's
80, something like 80 per paycheck or 90.
oh, it's 80. 115 altogether per paycheck, so 115 times 24.
Is that with the
2,700.
increased PTO tracking?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's
that's
27.
2,760.
but then you have to
On-
add the 2 CPAs to that. And then
that
you want,
was 1,200.
right, and then you want to add at least $50 because that monthly GTM is basic. You didn't have to pay for the WTUs, you have to pay for all these extra forms that come out, especially in January, because you got all the taxes.
That's what the CPAs do?
That's what GTM does.
GTM
the
does
payroll
that, so
company
that
does.
is an add-on
That's an add-on.
that's not in the amount that we're
That's not
currently
the amount,
paying.
that's not included in what you have to
Okay.
pay. You have to pay for everything extra.
And that's $50 to get all that extra
Well,
done?
the extra ones do, and then during the years, the forms that come in.
So 2,760 for GTM for the basic.
One
Service
fifteen times 24 plus 1,200 for the 2
Okay.
CPAs, and that's, as Allison just pointed out, we're searching for the other one.
Mhm.
Right,
Why
Uh,
do we need two?
Hmm?
Why do we need two?
The one that does the 990, which was Grady,
right.
he refuses to do the state form.
So then I think we find another one to do the 990. That would be my
You-
suggestion because it's the same.
If you want to go that route,
Yeah.
you go. I couldn't find anybody to do the 990 that was reasonable, but this was several years ago.
I just think if he doesn't want to do half the work and we're gonna have to pay somebody else, more to do the other half of the work, that's just the question.
Why does nobody want to do this? This is probably the stupidest question I've asked. Why does nobody want to do the state form? It's arduous and
Actually, you looked at it, or it's not so much arduous. They just don't want to do it. The guy that's been doing it for us said to me, I'd rather do taxes than that form.
It's a very standard like audit report, basically. So the accountant I use is there's one individual doing the tax form, there's one individual doing the audit report. They're two separate
Mhm.
things. They use all the same numbers, the same firm is doing it, but it's two separate people who do it. That's just what they specialize in. Small CPAs who are working for themselves would just do them both,
Right.
but it's just more work. The tax form's the easy piece, and then the audit report is pulling all the information together and making it
Huh.
readable.
So given that we don't have people, like, that we might be getting new people, I'm thinking we should pad this number a
Yeah,
little and not
absolutely.
make it a little quite the specific, so maybe we can roll it up to 4,000
Mhm.
just for going forward, because if we're giving Nelson a little bit of a raise and we're giving,
Well, I mean, the bookkeeper is gonna come in at 1770 if we give them a $10 a month raise, plus 2760 for payroll, right? That's the number you came up with.
yes,
But they're not together.
Plus,
Right.
Professional fees does not include Nelson,
okay, Nelson's
Oh,
under
it's a
independent
independent
contractor.
an
Contractor.
independent
Yeah,
contractor.
that's right.
Okay,
okay.
so
Which
that
at
we had
1,800. Okay,
1,800.
that makes more sense, because I was like, we're way over that 3,300 number, but, okay. So 2760 plus 1,200 plus that's 3,900 already.
So we might need more than that.
So we
42.
might need 40.
Run that again.
So 20.
What category are we dealing with?
Professional
Professional
fees.
fees.
Okay,
So we have 1,200 for the accountant.
right.
Plus
And then we said
27.60.
27 for GTM and
2760.
Yeah.
28.
Yeah.
that's 4,000. Already,
That's what I mean.
It is
It's
what
hard
it
to-
is. You're not gonna,
Yeah.
go any cheaper.
right,
So maybe 5.
yeah, so let's just put 45.
Hey, do you guys have any idea why I can't hear anything? For the
Oh, we
past
don't have the
minute?
speaker, sorry, Patrick.
I press
Do
a
we have the
button?
speaker we can put on?
So we're putting 4,500.
How weird.
Patrick, I
Did it
had
just cut out?
computer problems.
4,500 for professional fees and then independent contract.
Can you hear now?
100.
Say that again, please, the last thing, independent contractor.
I'm back.
100.
Can you hear?
Yeah, maybe I hit a button. Sorry.
1650
Okay.
ish.
Right,
I think this microphone, I don't know if this microphone is working or not.
doesn't help.
I wonder if you could do
Got it
that.
behind everything. That's okay,
He is retired.
Well,
He's
it's
only
retired.
volunteering for 18
Right.
agencies, but
Oh, shoot.
okay, so we need to refigure the hourly salaries.
So we
Um,
said we're gonna do youth programmer 20 hours a week at $20 an hour.
Yes.
We're changing that or are we keeping
We're
that?
keeping that.
And then 2 clerks at
One
$17 an hour.
One clerk
One clerk now,
at
One
40
clerk.
hours
40 hours.
at 17.
Got it. Okay.
I thought we were lowering the youth programmer.
So did I. but I
No,
think we're
he doesn't want to
adding it
lower.
to fees.
Claire doesn't want to lower it. She wants to give a hierarchy in the salaries.
I think that's appropriate, is if you're making people, be like doing more than the clerk sitting at the front desk
Well, it
computer.
gives us room to raise.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
we
you can
start out
at
and then,
18 and then
yeah.
go up from there if
Yeah.
you wanted to too. But the
Yeah.
clerk also has the advantage of being full-time, which is nice because then they would get benefits.
What are the comparables
The vacation time.
to other youth programmers in the area?
20's high from what, so this is what's interesting. It has changed. Granted, I don't have much data,
Mhm.
but, it has gone from 20 down to 17 to 18, depending on what their duties are. So some of the duties are just story times, running the after school Pokemon or whatever. And that's where it's lowering the salary, or the hourly rate is being lowered, because what's being asked of them is less than what
It's just
has
the
previously.
implementation. It's not the strategy.
Correct.
So
So if we take away the strategy
Right,
or-
and just do the,
implementation,
Maybe you
then we
play with the
can have
kids.
a lower round. But if somebody's doing a great job, if we start them out at 18 or whatever, and they're
I
doing,
would start at a lower rate
Mhm.
because we're getting a little less than 170 from the tax base. We're already working from behind. That's clear, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we're playing catch up from a decade of getting the same amount of money from the town.
right.
I would start lower and plan. This is where we can start planning the 20,
implementation, Yeah.
Yeah.
that's what I was thinking. Because
Mhm.
next
the
year,
next 414
Okay.
implementation.
Okay, I think you're gonna have to do some of this work in figuring out what you really need. Whether it's hiring high school kids or figure out like how to satisfactorily cover your schedule. And then we'll talk about it again, because I think we have to go back to, we need to figure out how to stretch the rest of the budget to cover salaries. And if we keep talking about increasing salaries, we're,
if we have one clerk full-time and then Annie and me, I think we're in good shape. If we can get a part-time student and a part-time programmer, or somebody that can just, Mercy's doing a great job right now, just getting somebody to help run these things,
Mhm.
and we'll be fine.
Mhm.
And we don't have to pay $20 an hour for them. It can be less, and they'll have less hours.
Yeah, and I do think that, well, it would be great to have a little bit more guidance with some of the programming eventually. I think she is doing a good job right now.
She-
She's keeping the kids engaged and entertained, and like, that's really what they need.
And we have, and I changed the program when we lost Molly to be almost free play,
Mhm.
and it's working out great.
Mhm.
And having art once a week is working out great.
Mhm.
So those programs are, it's
Okay.
working.
Okay, so then I'm very confused as what are we doing?
So
Hmm.
why don't we do this? Why don't we, for budget purposes, why don't we say clerk one, $17 an hour, 40 hours a week.
Mhm.
That comes out to $35,360.
Say that again, please.
Say that again, the total.
360.
Thank you.
Then we have the page right now, 1650. 8 hours. Is 8 hours enough for that page?
And that page is still, the same page is still here, okay.
Should we up that?
Maybe 10 hours?
10 hours? That's
Okay.
fine. All right, so 16, I have a calculator up. I'm adding it all in so I can.
Thank you.
So 1650, 10 hours a week, that's 8580. And then a youth programmer,
I thought you were doing away with that.
I'm not,
I think we should budget for it at
Mhm.
18 an hour.
yes.
And I think that we should cut it instead of 20 hours, do 15.
Okay.
That would be my suggestion, because I think that would give you that person, but the page could also help fill in and actually do the programming.
Or just help with managing the program, because
Mm-hmm.
we're getting more kids in, and one person's not gonna cut it. We have some students that I absolutely need one-on-one attention,
Mhm.
and that's what I'm worried
Yeah.
about. That's
Okay,
what,
so
what I
what's-
need to use.
That's
18 at 15 is what?
14,040.
14?
14,040. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, so I'm putting these all back in. 5. So that comes out to salaried employees at 57,900.
Not salary.
No, not.
Or
this
sorry,
is
this is
hourly.
hourly, 57,980.
For those three people.
For those three people.
And 80.
57,980.
Yep, which is slightly lower than we originally put in at 63,000. So
So that's
that
the
brings it down a little bit.
repeating, because
Yep.
I'm bad at numbers.
That's fine.
Thank God for you and Ted.
Thank God for Allison.
18, all of both of you. This is not my forte. $18.50 for the youth programmer.
$16.50. Oh, sorry. The
Youth
youth
program.
programmer,
It's 18.
18
Not 15 hours.
at 15 hours,
The page is $16.50 at 10 hours.
10 hours,
The clerk
$17 an hour,
at 40
40. Yep,
hours.
yes.
Uh,
So we just moved some of those hours from what we had previously discussed. The clerk we combined into one person.
Right.
And the page, we increased their hours at a lower hourly rate. The youth programmer, we brought it down a little bit.
Mhm. Okay,
Now,
Run
are
so
we-
that's our,
are we, sorry.
Run that once more.
That's okay.
Nice and easy.
I can type it all up for you if you want me to, too, Ted. The youth programmer, $18 an hour, 15 hours a week.
Okay.
The clerk, $17 an
Now
hour.
is the clerk different from the page?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the clerk,
$17 an hour, 40 hours a week.
okay,
And the page is $16.50 at 10 hours a week.
Okay.
And in the absence of a youth programmer, you could hire another page for $16.50 if you choose to go that route.
That's
I
true.
think that gives you the budget. Whether you stick to these
Okay.
job titles or not
I think
is,
that's good.
yeah,
That's a good
Right,
idea.
right,
That's a
because
good idea.
that's what ends up happening
Not the
anyway.
kids' bodies right
yeah.
Yeah.
And fill them as you
And
can.
then the number, the salary number that we had come up with for the two of them.
Do you need me to go?
93,480.
Do you need me to go?
yeah,
No,
I don't wanna be,
no, actually, I think we'd
I think we
already
kind of
Because we already
settled that.
discussed that.
All right.
kind of settled it. And I think.
Yeah, that's what I had
I
too.
think we're, yeah,
now. Okay.
Plus, we want to
Um,
add into that, the retirement insurance benefit, however, that 5,000.
right.
That did not include that one.
That didn't include the
Correct.
5,000 for, okay.
Correct. That would be.
So
added
we
to
may
there.
just, so we're gonna make that 98 or 80?
Yes.
That's the only way I can figure out how to
Yep.
give it.
Simple.
Okay, so we need to, so use, and then we need to do 8% for the FICA. Oh no, I put it. Oh,
0.08.
0.08. Okay. So I'm gonna do it in here times.
two salary numbers.
Well, we have to take FICA out of the clerk as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
it comes
You
out of
got
all
another
salaries.
total.
Yeah, so total FICA, when I combine the salaries and the hourly wages, would come out to 12,517.
12,517.
It's a lot. It adds up quickly.
We don't get any of it back.
And we just broke our budget.
Yeah. Again.
How fast that was.
Yeah. That's
What's
So
the
when
total?
I add.
So gross salaries is 156,460.
6,460. Yes.
Mhm.
No, gross
No.
salaries is 98,480.
Oh, my apologies.
No, that's
And
not,
then-
that,
And then you add in the gross hourly wages.
Hourly wages versus salary.
So the total
got it,
wages.
got it, sorry.
Yeah.
The total payroll
It's
is what?
156.
Payroll is 156,460.
right, got it.
56, 460.
But that's, oh, sorry, that doesn't include
the
FICA
independent contractor.
Oh,
for the independent contractors, yeah.
So
okay,
gross
that-
salaries,
So what's that
Hang on, I'm
number?
adding it in.
nine, gross salaries is 98,480.
Plus 57,980.
Yes. So. Plus 45, plus 8.
175, 277.
Um,
77.
which I'm gonna flat out say we can't do.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know, we have all the other things we have to pay for as well,
Mhm.
that this number.
Adds up quickly.
So the next election year for us to go back for another
next year.
is next year, so it's next June.
We have to, I think we have to have, the petition, which requires 25 signatures, to the, state in August. I think it's early August is my recollection. We can go back. So we will have to have a budget meeting where we hammer out our number, over the summer. We're gonna have to do this again.
Okay, and from the grant, the Perkins Center,
Yeah,
from that grant, how much do we have left?
we still have about 40.
40 something.
40 something.
Okay.
So there's other money we can use that we've been squirreling away.
Right, so what if we were to, I know this is maybe not the smartest thing to do, but what if we were to cover the gap with some pocket of money, that we have, which is not a great idea, but then we make sure that when we go for the next vote, that we are ahead of ourselves. Because I thought we had planned out 3 years when we went for this vote, that we had planned out for 3 years, but we're already over that 1 year later.
Yep,
So, I mean,
that's what I thought. I thought we'd added enough to the numbers too. but-
right, so clearly, things have gotten more expensive, and so that's fine,
Things have gotten more expensive. We have no more volunteers at the moment.
right?
Right,
That's what I'm being told.
Mhm.
Staffing changed 100%.
Yeah.
And the board has done no fundraising
Mhm.
virtually at the moment.
Correct, so So I just feel like I'm not sure that we can't do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you said we can't because it's because of the
Right,
number,
right,
the
yeah.
number. But like, I'm not sure that, I mean, this feels like the bare minimum
Yeah, I agree. yeah.
already. So how can we make this work? And make sure that we're not in this position next year?
So the difference of income versus expenses right now, if we were to use this number we just came up with, is 32,500. That's the difference. $33,000. So we need to come up with $33,000. If
Okay.
when we look at where we were on expenses, you know, there's a lot of things, expenses we raised were said, you know, fundraising costs we raised by $2,000. $7,000 is the cost of fundraising. Building costs of insurance and maintenance, 3,700.
We had already upped
We had-
the number. We were gonna try to fundraise up to 28,000.
Yes, so I'm just looking down, you know,
Okay,
from the expenses, we're upping
Okay.
our programming budget
Right.
to 10,000. So far this year, we've only spent 3. Is 10,000, do we cut back
Realistic.
on the cost of the programming so we can hire a programmer? Like that's kind of, you know, if we have a programmer who can do more things from, you know, their imagination as opposed to going out and buying things and purchasing things.
But that, yeah, I didn't understand the programming budget, but I am starting to pay people to come and do things. Like the artist is more expensive than
Mhm.
anybody else, but you know, we're starting to pay our translators,
Mhm.
things like that. But I don't think it's going to be 10,000.
Mhm. So I'm just thinking even if we can get that number, the overall $33,000 down just a
because
little bit.
anytime we get a grant for a program, it's a grant expense. It's not a programming expense.
Right. So Ted has been funneling, whenever we've had a cost of a program
Mhm.
that we could take from grant money,
Right.
we've done it. You know,
Right.
we have not, we basically
We
have
haven't
not,
been spending
right,
that
we have not been
number.
saying,
So maybe we shouldn't raise that one so much.
Maybe we can say 5,000 instead of 10,000 for programming expenses.
we can.
As you get grants, that number can increase. I think that's another portion of it. You know, I think.
Yeah, hold on, Ted.
How do you feel
Look
about
at
that?
him, he's about,
He's-
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you crazy.
No, I'm not. So that means that you're limiting yourselves to what the grant says you can do it.
That's the other problem.
Because you're not gonna have free whatever the hell you wanna do. It's got, this, we're
Correct,
giving you
yeah.
this grant for this,
Mhm.
and that's where it's gotta stay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Except that Dee Dee Barrett,
Right.
Dee Dee
which
Barrett,
is coming,
Yeah,
she usually does not put any restriction on it.
Right.
Okay.
and that's $5,500.
Mhm.
So
That's coming in.
Covers your programming right there.
Yeah. But if you have a programmer on site and you don't have to necessarily hire the artist to come and the other people to come, you know, I feel like you're filling in right
That
now
is true.
with, you know, the artist, I think he's doing a great job. He's coming up with great crafts for the kids. But if you had a programmer that we could pay the $20 an
That's
hour,
true.
you know,
You're
Would you-
redirecting
you're
funds instead of
redirecting it,
robbing
yeah.
Peter to pay Paul.
Yeah.
And what about the friends? I mean, aren't there things that Ted's like?
They don't really, they're really at this point, they do the book sale.
they were volunteers too, also kind of, you know, I think unfortunately.
Yeah,
They're
they're,
having-
But
everybody's
what,
excited.
like, how much money is left with the friends?
I don't know what they have in their account, and they don't think of it as the library's money. They think of it's their money. They provide a couple of programs a year. They buy supplies for the summer.
Summer reading.
summer reading.
I wonder if, and maybe this is a conversation for another time, but it feels like you sort of have two competing groups fundraising for the library, right? And then one is deciding how to delegate that money, right?
Yeah.
So why do we even have the friends?
I don't know the answer. I honestly don't know.
Well, they
the
can
history
fundraise in
of-
ways that we cannot.
Yeah.
They can advertise and do political things that we cannot.
Yeah,
And advocate for the
there-
404 that we
Sure.
cannot.
Sure, but you could still have like a political action committee on the side that you use to do those things. So, I mean, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like they're sort of, cannibalizing each other almost in a way.
Mhm.
I don't know, maybe that's crazy.
No,
I think
no.
it's very, very common to have a friends group as a separate entity outside. I think it's the way it's done in lots of places. I just I've always wondered if they just raise more money than our friends group does. But I don't know. Um, I mean, I, I don't think you're suggesting that we get rid of
do
them
away.
because I think it's I think we should find maybe a better way to utilize them.
Mhm.
There aren't any,
And
then they just have left go.
Yeah.
I mean, not to be like, elephant in the room here, but there are like two of them.
I don't disagree, and that's why we increased our board
Fundraising
fundraising budget line.
plan, yeah.
Not to push them out, but with the expectation that they are
We are
not
also
doing as
for,
much as maybe they did in the past.
I don't think you can do anything with.
I agree.
They're down
they're
to
their
just
own
a
entity.
handful of old
Yeah.
ladies, and
They're doing their
the
thing.
best, and they're at least doing something.
Yeah.
I mean, because if I was them, I would come back to you and say, "Well, what did you do?" And the
Mm.
answer is, "How much money
Right.
did you raise?"
Right.
Which is why we increase our budget line.
You increased, but did you do anything
No.
this year?
No,
All right.
No.
And
So
by the
then-
time I tell you, go take a nice long walk.
exactly right.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So
I
we
think that
need-
was,
We need to increase our, but that,
Yes.
my argument would
Yes.
be, leave them alone, they're their own entity and they're doing their thing.
and they
That
do a
just-
lot of work that the library doesn't want to
Yeah,
do.
I mean, I'm just asking
No, I agree.
questions, so I'm not like,
I've wondered that too, like I
Yeah.
didn't know what they've done, what they haven't done, but I feel like that they are contributing to some of the programming expense though.
They
for
do,
sure.
they give us, they help us buy the award-winning books, children's books, I think, don't they?
Yeah, for
Yeah.
the summer reading, they
The
gave
summer
us the grant
reading.
$500.
Yeah, but I don't know about the other books. I
I
don't.
thought, I think they used to get all the award-winning books.
Yeah,
And they would add those to the collection. They, and we can check with Jean about that. I don't know the details.
The bad.
And then they do they buy equipment sometimes.
Sometimes like we
They
need
do
new
those little
scanners.
kits
you do
or
those
things
kits, those little
sometimes.
brown
And
box
then,
kits, whatever
and
they're
then they
called.
do the book sale, and those are all big things that are real helpful.
Yeah, the
Um,
book sale's a big thing.
the truth is there are many libraries that have a friend group that has the 503B or 503
See,
yeah, whatever
I don't
the
remember.
one of the nonprofit status, we also have a nonprofit status. So we have that as we can both do fundraising, but many libraries, they don't, the friends have the status, not the library,
Right.
so.
okay, so I mean, I think Ted makes a good point, and Ethan's made a
Yeah.
good point 100 times, which is that,
We haven't done it.
We haven't done enough,
Yeah.
so.
So I mean, if we're looking for $33,000, I don't want to be like the bad guy in the room, but at the same time, I think that we should cut the library programming. We're gonna pay
Yeah.
for a staff person. That's gonna just mean that we can't pay for as much extras for them to do. I think there's, that sucks. Like, you don't want to cut programming, but the other portion is materials at 17,000. We upped that 2,000 from last year.
We already have the Barrett grant for next year, correct?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It hasn't arrived. but it's coming.
$5,500.
Right.
Thereabouts, yeah.
So right there, somebody said it already,
Mhm.
that
Right,
covers what you're cutting in the
Right.
programming cost
right,
or proposing to cut the
but
programming.
I think we put it down.
But we did include that that's included in the total
That's
income.
the grant, I think, yeah. But yes, I think you're right. I think we have to cut that library programming number, on here. What was the last year we had programming? 10,000?
So that was the budget, but so far, I mean, this is as of August, they've only spent 3,000.
Right, it looks, the optics of cutting, but the programming budget is.
Yeah.
What if we do
Right.
6,000?
Mhm.
Yes, it does
Okay.
cut it substantially,
What was it at? What did we budget for it in 2024?
10,000,
We just didn't spend it all.
correct.
Just haven't spent it, yeah.
Are we gonna, we had talked about at one point, getting the grant software? We should
Yes,
discuss that.
we had talked, I talked to Deanne about it as well. And I don't know, I sent Deanne a few, like I just searched on mine and I
Mhm.
sent her a few options. I don't know if you felt like it was, the cost of it's like $200 a month.
So of the ones that you sent me, only one was actually pertinent to what we could use, the ALA one.
Yeah.
That was included in that one. The
Okay.
other ones were,
There's,
long shots.
yeah, there,
really
it's
bad long
national
shots.
based, so
Mhm.
there's not a lot of local options. I think you said you found a lot on other library sites, specifics for libraries.
For some, yeah.
For some of them?
Yeah, we can try. I will certainly
Mhm.
try for these grants, but,
Mhm.
but I don't know that it's worth it.
Yeah.
Okay, and what about is, not to screw up, but I told Hampton here, but is Rebecca a resource for like identifying additional grants that we might not know about?
They routinely put out, notices on.
Oh, that's right, I've seen
These
those.
grants are
Yeah.
coming out, so we can
Okay.
certainly apply for those.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
They do a good job of.
So just perspective, this was from the last board meeting. Our expense line for library programming is $4,126, which is 41% of the 10,000 budgeted for 2024
Mhm.
as of September.
So, and that's month nine.
September.
Yeah.
9.
Okay,
So if we did 6,000,
yeah,
is everybody comfortable with that?
that says 4,000 off, so we're down to 29. We'd already upped the amount we were planning to fundraise and expect for donations to 28. And again, we're all gonna have to really,
Let's
We-
raise it higher. I mean,
yeah, we have
I
to.
think we can raise $50,000,
Yeah.
Okay.
not without, I mean, looking at what the newspaper has raised,
Mhm.
they have done a very good job at fundraising. And I would think that the library, the idea of fundraising for the library would be even more appealing to people,
Mhm.
I would
you know?
agree.
So I think we can raise $50,000.
Have you guys, has anybody set a fundraising?
No,
No.
I think I appreciate what you're saying. I think there's a different history with the library and
But I don't think. we're
compared
going-
to the newspaper where we lost the newspapers in town. We used to have 3. I'm not that old. I remember 2.
Right,
I
but
only remember 2.
those aren't the people, I would say, knowing who the donors are. Those
They don't care
are,
about any of that.
no, people are certainly happy to have the newspaper back, 100%. But I don't think that the deep pocketed people that are donating to the newspaper they are interested in people getting information about the town and,
Mm.
and journalism. They don't, and they are happy to have the newspaper come back. But those people don't care about the library history either. They're not, I think they weren't as entrenched in like the whole debacle. of the
Fair enough.
And I
library.
think that it can also be phrased that, the library's taken a real step in a new direction. We hired a new director. We are now going to have 3 full-time employees as opposed to 1. I think there's ways to phrase it that like the library's really looking to step up and fill in, where it maybe in the past hasn't. And I think there's a way to kind of say that to those people who would be like, oh, this is great. I want to support that. It's
Right.
going in the right direction. We see the process we're making. And just saying, we want to pay wages that are reasonable.
Right,
And,
right.
we need
Well,
help
we're
to do that.
required.
Yeah, that would
to-
legally required.
Yeah.
But also, no, I think like the smaller donors at the newspaper are those people who definitely like miss the old paper and they wanna know what's going on, but like the large donors.
I think I can count on like one hand the amount of donors who would easily give over $2,500 to the library if we just wrote them a letter and asked. I think I could.
Well, then we need,
Probably get
but we
rid of
need to,
them.
okay, so we need,
So we need to do it.
We need help, we need to get that,
Yeah.
we need to get the mailer
Yeah.
ready so we can print it and send it.
What,
Yeah,
what,
I have
what-
a letter that I just got from my kid's old
Hmm.
school,
What?
with
Tell-
their capital campaign letter.
You just got
fundraising
$60,000.
letter. Perfect
What
letter
the hell's
for
the
us to
matter with
copy.
you?
from the tax?
You just got $60,000 more in one shot deal. And you still can't balance the darn thing?
That's furious.
I mean, if I was a taxpayer, well, I am a taxpayer. My answer to you would be, you got $60,000. What the hell did you do with it?
Well, we were operating at a
We
deficit.
were operating at a deficit, we increased the number of hours,
Mhm.
we're,
Providing
Well-
services, I think we need to frame it in that the library was unable to provide the services that the town has asked for with the previous budget, and now in order to do so, we actually, it's just, this is what it costs.
And we're doing the programming, and I think we're doing more programming than we can afford.
I'm just playing devil's
No,
advocate.
no,
I
I,
know,
you're
you get
totally
it.
right, and I think that's why we're not going to the tax people. I think that's part of the reason of going to people that we think would be bigger donors on top, that they're not going to see it as us asking for more tax dollars. We
But
want
you
them to help.
already are talking about.
Well, I know, but
tax
if
dollars.
I would rather not go
Yeah.
for 414 next, another 414 next year. If we can
If we
figure out,
can
if we can
figure
figure out
out
a way
a-
to
To
not
raise
do
the
it,
money
we should
outside of
not
that.
do it.
Yeah.
It should be our last resort.
Mhm.
Well, when we went to that meeting,
yeah,
we get-
the new scenario is that you should be getting your budget on the ballot every year,
every year.
is the way we should be approaching
I'm
it.
not sure the people of
Pine Plains can
Pine
handle
Plains
that.
can
Well,
It may be an every other year,
Or
but.
3% is what they, would, 3% increase every year.
So I guess if you're looking at it that way, if it's a smaller increase every year, maybe it's kind of a little bit less.
Because there is a tax
consequential,
cap.
and they're
on
used
it
to take
as
that
well.
fair.
And they're
Yeah.
used to seeing it every single
Right.
year, that you just, oh yeah, I just have to vote for this again.
Mhm.
Right.
Like the school, like the
The
school
schools,
budget.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it would be, honestly, I do think it'd be easier to go every year at 3% than it would
I
be to
agree,
go
I
every
agree,
other
I
year
agree, I agree with you. on that.
8%, but
But
it's difficult because I've been in organizations where they don't raise their budget every year, and then they're right where we are, where we have to play catch up on it, and we have to say, oh no, we haven't done, like, you haven't raised the prices of things on 4 years, now you're screwing yourself over, because now you have to take such a dramatic increase.
Right.
there's
That
not been a
looks sad, but-
414 that has failed this
Yeah.
year. There's not even one for the budgets that have gone by for municipal. I mean, what?
Even if you went for 3%, you're only gonna get $5,000.
Yeah.
Right,
And
That
that's
still
why-
doesn't,
No, it still doesn't make up for this, and
No,
I
it doesn't.
agree, and I think that's where we have to step up with the fundraising side of it, and I do think that, I mean, I don't know if it's a conflict of interest for me to do this for the library and Willow Roots.
Well, I'm doing it the same for the
Okay.
newspaper,
No,
so.
then no, then I can do both. But that's part of the reason why I was hesitating on like.
I mean, everyone's
volunteering to
still,
be
listen,
involved in it,
if
but-
you don't think that the newspaper, the Stissing House, the library, and Willow Roots are all going after the
The same
exact
people,
same
yes,
people,
yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter,
doesn't matter.
because I thought about it too, and I was like, the pool is so limited
Mhm.
that, or
Yeah.
fairly limited, that like, everyone's gonna identify the exact same people.
Yeah.
And you've got to add NECC to that list as well.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah,
and you have to add the food locker.
Food locker,
Yeah.
the fire
also fun.
department,
Yeah.
the boosters, the
Yeah,
PTA.
all of them, yeah.
Yeah,
Well, some of those groups go after the nickel and dime, the $10
Okay.
raffle
That's-
tickets. Like the
and I-
boosters are fundraising
Yeah.
down.
And I think that's
at a much
traditionally
different
where
layer,
Willow
so-
Roots has been fundraising too.
Yeah.
I think we have the advantage of being able to step up and do, bigger, I think a letter and, a flyer for an annual appeal is what we need to do in order to get like
Right,
serious.
so
interest.
we're imminently hitting the point where we need to send something to the printer, so we need to, writing is not my thing, so I I know I keep saying that, but like I'm good at editing, I will, can tell you what's missing from something, but I can't
I think we
write
follow it
stuff.
off of what Alexis did
Yeah,
previously, and then we just tweak it accordingly. That's
okay,
easy, that's
Right.
a starting point.
yeah,
yep.
change some of the graphics and make
Right.
it look different. and
Don't
it's
rewrite,
Same words.
don't rewrite the whole thing,
No.
Yeah.
So I didn't,
especially right now.
I couldn't tell I didn't find any documentation for what y'all did last time for the 414, but I've been collecting different flyer
It's got
sizes.
to
Yeah.
be there.
I know it does, but I have to find it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I've been collecting different size flyers and see which most effective.
Yeah, I have them at home too.
So
And I had also left some stuff for Alexis of things that I get from the East Hampton Historical Society, which is a
Right.
huge fundraising campaign where it's like, the card stock and the return envelope and all of that. But so there's lots of different ways to go about it, I think.
So
All right, so where are we?
We,
circling back.
Yep.
The line items of our last meeting on the expense report have not changed with the exception of what we just changed.
the salary
Correct.
number,
Salaries and library
Okay.
program.
right?
Can we change the materials to just match 2024? We
Good
gave an extra
idea.
$2,000 in 2025. Can we keep it at 15,000 instead of raising it to 17,000?
Okay.
yeah, we can keep
Just,
it.
I mean, I feel like
Yeah,
every
that's-
dollar we can not, unfortunately, I don't wanna cut back on materials. So I know
So
I can.
here's the challenge with materials. Oh, go ahead. What, Claire?
No, no.
The material challenge is that we are space limited
Yeah,
and we cannot add until we take away. So we have to do hard weeding in order to get the space to bring in new items.
Well, I also want to, I know I'm like a dead horse with this, but I want to bring Paul Mays back and have
Yeah.
him, how do we get more stuff in here without getting rid of stuff?
the more I sit here, I'm not gonna lie, the more I look around and think about all the dead space that
Yeah.
we could be using.
Yeah.
So I know, but you just don't have time to, think about that on a, day-to-day
Well,
basis.
we
but-
thought about like
Yeah.
swapping out the nonfiction with the fiction
Yeah,
in the adult
yeah.
fiction. So, but there's only so much we can do. We have, lots, regardless, for this budget, for this year, for,
So
Sorry.
the updated number per Ted's report, as of September, we spent $13,064.90 of the 15,000 budgeted for materials.
I will spend all of it by the
Which
end.
is 87% of that.
Right,
budget.
which is
By the
more.
end, yeah.
So we're gonna hit that.
We're gonna hit
We
it.
will, I will spend,
If
I,
not,
I will spend on on e-materials. If we don't have room for
Mhm.
physical materials, I can easily spend that on e-materials.
So what
Okay,
if we
but we're-
increase it $1,000
Yeah,
instead of
instead of
$2,000?
Right,
So it is a
okay.
little bit of an increase. It's a little bit more of a buffer. And like you just said, you can buy anything with whatever money we give you in the materials budget, correct?
right.
Absolutely.
Yep.
There's
Especially with e-materials.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
16,000.
The
for that.
16 for materials,
And that drops us, we're now looking at a difference of 27,500 that we're trying to make up. So do we double our donation hopes? Like,
I think we put donations at $50,000. Do you already?
Yep.
So. We're gonna come through, Chad. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make you buy me a drink.
I'll buy you two if you do.
I
We
bet
had-
you we can do it.
We had somebody come through the other day. That
so
was-
whatever, we're down to what now
So,
is
hang on,
the
let me
reserve number.
So just line by line, let's skip over fundraising expenses,
Okay.
or are we leaving that the same?
Let's
hold
leave
on
it
a
at
minute.
5,000 right now, or 7,000 right now.
We're gonna increase it by 22,000. That puts us within $5,500.
5,500 in the reserve line,
Yeah.
5,500. That looks better optically. Because we have to publish our budget eventually.
That's putting a lot of pressure on us, but I think
So-
we can figure it out.
We're increasing the expense line for the BOT fundraising to $7,000.
Mhm.
Are we okay with that? I would say lower that too. I'm on the conservative end of, I don't wanna pull any money out.
Do you wanna say 5?
That's what we were at last year.
Or 6,
And we haven't-
increase it because the intention is
The
to
intention
have
is to increase, yeah,
a lot of fundraising, okay. But we have yet to do it or yet to see what the actual expense is, so.
okay, so that would, so if we lower that to
6,000?
6,000. Then that's 4,500 now,
4527, yeah.
27 difference.
Building costs were remaining the same.
It's the same.
at 3,700.
This grant expenditures line is,
Basically,
Hold on.
whatever you take in grants, you're supposed to be spending in grants.
right,
So it's kind
okay,
of
So
offsetting.
Okay.
you allocated 5,000 coming in.
right, you have to.
5,000 going
spend
out.
5,000, yeah.
It's,
I got you.
sorry, we went over equipment costs too fast for me.
Keeping it the same at 3,000.
Do you anticipate any equipment?
As of your last report, Ted, we were up to 48%, 50% of the budget, basically, for the year.
Okay, so we can reduce it.
Yeah.
We're getting new computers.
new
We've got our
computers.
fax situation set up. If copier needs to be repaired, we'll have to eat that up. But
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Replacing, a lot
Yeah.
of stuff's been,
I'll be honest, and we do a copier lease. It's $75 a month. It includes all of the toner. It ends up being more expensive over 5 years than just buying one. But the headache of not having to deal with it, and if you have a problem, they come and they fix it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't necessarily fix the connectivity, like if you can't connect to it, they don't fix that. But if something happens to the copier and it stops scanning or it stops working or it jams, like it's $75. It's probably about the same size that what you have now.
We just bought.
that could be a
this,
good
or is
idea in
this
the
the-
future.
In
that's the one
future-
we were given. We
Yeah.
were given that with two coat
Okay,
toners.
so the
so long
question
as it
is,
works,
so
please.
And if it's you were limited to how many copies you do every month before you have to pay for it. But at the same time, I think we get like 15,000 copies a year and we're never gonna touch that. But in the future, it's because it also includes the toner, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah.
We went through that with Veronica, and it was a disaster.
Really,
That's, I think, why Alexis canceled it at some point. Well, that was,
Yeah, we did. We finally canceled the whole thing.
really.
I
But-
don't know.
what was the
Doesn't mean you can't
disaster?
look into it
Right, yeah,
because
look
that
into it,
might
absolutely.
be a good.
We at work, we bought a brand new printer. It was terrible. It could barely connect. It didn't, and I was finally like, just lease something. That's what most
What-
office.
I'm just curious, do you recall what the details of it with Marguerite or Veronica were? Like, what was the disaster part?
One, she bought it without board approval, not really one, didn't go over it, but there was
Okay,
a
well-
problem with,
She did a lot of that, I think.
uh, we were paying more than monthly rate. Because we seem to always go over the
Mhm,
pages,
mhm.
and
So we'd have to check, we'd have to
You'd have to
check the
really do the
lease
work
and
of
really
how much.
figure
Yeah.
out the numbers as to what we're spending.
Well, I'm also gonna examine the amount we're charging for color copies. And I need to, that hasn't been looked at, and we need to do that, because I don't think we're charging enough for color copies.
I
We
agree.
do a lot
As somebody who
of-
makes a lot of color copies here,
Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah,
So I
no,
usually give you guys more on top as
Get
a
a friends
donation.
and family discount.
yes, no, I agree,
Yeah.
all those
How many
things.
color copies
A
do you
black and
volunteer
white
to do that for
printout,
2 hours?
10 cents is probably appropriate.
Do it.
We do that 20 cents. Yeah, it's.
Whatever it
for the
is,
color
yeah,
is, yeah.
but color could be more than a
Yeah,
black and
I
white
don't think we're
copy, because the
doing-
toner for color.
Oh, it is more, but I don't think it's enough more. Just
What
like
do we
so
charge
it's
for color?
40 cents
Yeah, we
for
keep going down. on
We had
this.
lowered,
up to $1
sorry to interrupt.
a page, depends.
To get us back on track.
Yeah.
A penny.
Thank you,
Yeah.
we do,
Oh,
I have to do that before I have to leave.
okay.
So we had lowered equipment costs to 3,000. Should we lower that a little bit further for this budget year? To maybe 2,500, which would
Let's
be
do-
on appropriate track,
Because don't we still have money in a grant for computer?
and we have the lodge
We're-
account money, which is
we
what
have the
use
Perkins grant.
And the
We
Perkins
can,
grant.
we've been using the Perkins grant when we needed a bigger check, like when we redid the website, we used the Perkins grant,
And the
You know, so
computers
that-
that are coming in.
Yeah,
and
the
the computers are coming out of the
yeah.
capital.
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Lodge
The
account.
computers are coming out of the lodge.
Okay.
Yes,
Oh,
So
okay.
equipment is 2,500 now?
That's what I would.
yeah, let's do that.
We're whittling this
So we're
away.
down to 4,027 out of reserve.
Grant
Is that
expenditures.
correct?
Yeah,
We can't, I mean, if we're putting 5,000,
Grant expenditures at the moment, we are at 6,116 as of September, which is 122% of what's budgeted, which is 5,000.
But that's because we had grants left over from the previous year
Yeah.
that we were
got
able to
spending.
use.
So we had proposed leaving it at 5,000.
Right, but
5,000.
we're putting 5,000 for grants coming in, so we have to put
You
grant
just have to balance
expenditures,
those, yeah.
yeah,
Wonderful.
those are
Great.
Marketing
tied
and
together.
communication.
Marketing and communication, that,
That went
What happened
up.
to insurance?
Well, insurance, I don't think you have a choice. I think insurance is gonna stay what it's gonna stay,
Which is what?
which we have at
5,000.
5,000.
is that, is. Okay,
It was at 10, but we took 5 out.
we
and put
took
it towards
5 out
salaries
to
and
put
wages,
it
yeah.
towards salaries, yeah.
So marketing and communication, we upped that from 1,000 to 1,500. I think that's
Programming.
Part of that is, go ahead.
Go ahead.
It's part of that is our software. It's not much, but it's the MailChimp.
Yeah.
Anything
Right.
we use for communicating with
Right,
is MailChimp. And if we were talking about improving our communication and our newsletter look, then we would need to up our
MailChimp.
our
Go to something
subscription.
different.
Well, we could
Do we need to do, like, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea.
$20 a month is their next level of membership for MailChimp. And from what I understand, it's still easier to use than constant
Okay, so
communication.
I think we should up it.
But
Yeah.
MailChimp is not in marketing and communication, it's in equipment. It is
It's a-
computer software.
Oh.
No, MailChimp, Adobe is in the computer things, but MailChimp is marketing and communications. It should
That
be.
is correct.
So
Okay,
marketing and communication right now is at 77% of our budget. If you're saying the next tier is $20 a month, that's $240 on top. So maybe increasing it to 1,250, 1,250 instead of the 1,500.
$12.50. And then I have a question about, let's skip ahead here. What is the postage?
stamps
I
and the
know that, but
post office box.
That's
the post office box.
$100 a year.
Yeah, 100 something.
or something like
And we pay for postage whenever we mail out our
What are we-
vendors.
Our checks.
Yeah,
Sure.
every check, our check
Okay.
every month.
That is not the fundraising mailer.
I
that's-
didn't think
yeah,
so, but I
yeah.
was wondering what else.
No, That's our.
Is
that's
four, is 400 appropriate?
Where are we on it this year?
I have no idea where you all skipped.
Postage.
Postage.
Okay, supplies.
I saw it right penny out there.
Where is postage? We're at 35% for the year as of the end of September. 35%.
Have we paid our mailbox rent? Maybe not.
Yeah, does that postage, the post office rental comes out of the postage fund,
Right.
right? Yeah.
That's every 6 months.
No, whole year.
It's
And when
100
do-
Oh,
We paid it.
It's
We
100
already
a
paid
year. Yeah.
We've already paid it.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we can lower the 400.
250.
I'd go to 300.
300?
I'd go to 300.
Roll of stamps now is $78, 78 twice. Yeah, you probably do that.
300.
But that means well, as you go over it, you go over it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we're saying 250.
This is the budget. So we're saying 250? 300.
So staff development, should we just cut that and figure out a way to pay for it later?
I mean, they spent memberships, travel and training, 800.
They're already, I think the traveling is really important. That's the,
We budgeted for $800. We're at 862 spent as of the end of September.
because of her mileage.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all mileage.
Yeah,
It's all mileage.
so I don't think we
Can
can.
we say can we say $1,000 instead of 1,200?
you were talking about wanting to have
Thinking at
Annie do some
1,000,
training.
That's. all
Do we have a
mileage we're still
cost
at
for that?
No, it's just
Okay.
fine. It's but for her, she doesn't drive unless we go over
Right.
down there, unless she goes over there. But
I think 1,200 is the bare minimum,
It
and that
is.
would cover
Okay.
mileage.
that covers
Oh,
mileage, because I will have, like, that trip we went
Yeah,
yesterday or the other
Yeah.
day was Friday. It's 50 miles basic round trip wherever you go. It's
Yeah.
25 miles to get back and
Yeah.
4 miles to get back, so it's 50 miles.
do it through.
Familiar with it too.
It
Yeah,
is so worth it,
exactly.
y'all. It's so worth it going to the
Yeah.
DVLA and anything.
So I think we should leave it at 1,200.
Supplies that we've spent as well. I mean, I don't know if the.
I
quote
think
we-
it's we get money from people making copies
Mhm.
and this is the copier
Yeah.
comes
We
out
need
of it, so it
50%.
always looks askew.
The last number is 2631, which is 66-ish% of the 4,000 budgeted.
Yeah,
So-
so we already dropped it to 3,000.
I'm comfortable
Yeah.
with that.
Utilities are kind of non-negotiable, I feel
Yeah.
like.
So do we have sorry, I'm making you do the calculator.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I think we were down, as long as we kept all those the same, I have 136.77 from
And
reserves.
you got the change here.
Yes, I've got that.
We didn't change, and we changed postage a little bit.
Yeah, 100 under on that,
Okay.
1,000 under on.
So what are we down to with our reserves?
36.77.
36.77.
So why don't we say we're gonna raise $54,000?
I love it.
I am
think-
optimistic.
I
I
am
do
too.
not think that this is
Even
gonna
if
be
I
a
have to
problem.
learn how to write grants and Deanne can
I-
teach me.
I-
Gary's
I don't-
chairmaning the
I don't-
finance, the
You are-
fundraising committee.
You're the chairman.
No, I'm pretty
How
sure
does it
you
work
are.
with me?
No, that sounds great.
I will be a silent worker bee from somewhere else, but I will help you
I
guys
think we can
out.
do
I
it.
think
Yeah.
we can do it.
Okay,
think
so
And I think we
let's
should do
let's
like
do that. Let's so
letterhead
Yeah,
with all
yeah.
the board names
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the side, write a letter. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll do it. We'll be your worker bee.
okay.
I have a lot of faith in that. I haven't said anything on this topic in this meeting, but I think we can do it.
I think
I
so
think
too. I think
I
there's
think-
2 or 3 people.
I don't think we have a choice.
I don't think we do.
So I mean,
We haven't had a chance to tell all of you. Mr. Zagat came in the other day and said he's up in the area on a regular basis now. He's been doing political stuff, but he was like, my mother was a children's librarian,
he was on my list.
and he's
Mine
like, he goes, I'm just gonna send you $5,000.
Wonderful.
So like, it hasn't arrived yet.
You will get it.
Yeah, no, eventually we'll get it.
We'll
but-
get it.
So,
Send them a nice
But
thank
I,
you
but
note.
I also think if we can come up with a plan that we need.
See,
at
I've
20
already got, we're down to $49,000 right now.
so our expense line comes to 233,177.
233,
77. Okay.
okay, and so we're adding this, so we've lost our reserve line, which, thank God. I was,
You were a little panicked.
panicked.
And just to clarify, we have not changed any of the income lines.
Correct. Other than the donation.
Other than the
Which is
donation.
now,
I mean, there's corporate options too. There's all sorts of.
There's,
ones.
yeah, no, we can.
what's
yeah.
the donation line?
We're making that
54,000.
54,000. And I think that ends up pretty much.
Equipment use copier is 1,500.
Mhm.
Funding from the town is 170, or excuse me, from multiple sources, 170.
From the town?
From multiple sources, my apologies. 177,400. Wait,
What does that add up to?
Somehow, I feel like we're missing something.
don't know. 50. Yeah, we've got a little bit of a gap somewhere. 232,900. So that means you gotta round up
Let's
the,
round it up to 55,
Yeah.
and then we just can.
and Carrie will make up the difference.
I'll write a check for $900. Just so we can have the numbers almost the same and we figure out what the $23, we could tuck it in. Okay. Okay. I think that's everything. We're gonna have to vote on this at the board meeting. So we can redo this to look pretty. Okay,
Can you send me a final?
Do you want me to send it? Yeah, absolutely.
okay. Perfect.
And then, this, Claire and I spoke to someone who might be interested in being on the board. They are currently on vacation. But we will, find time to sit down with her, and if she's interested in what the responsibilities will be,
Mhm.
we'll let you know and bring her in to meet everyone, but.
Matt Kelly's still interested. He said he would have an answer more towards the new year. So,
Okay.
he's the one that.
I don't understand this, that he can't fill out the application until he's 100% sure he wants to.
Right. He's being cautious. He apologizes, but he wants to be absolutely sure he can contribute.
Okay.
Can we set a meeting date for the
Fundraising committee?
committee?
Claire's already done
Um,
a tenth of the work.
okay, so here's the problem.
Mhm.
We only can have 2 board members present.
Okay.
At the meeting. I'm
We
gonna
just
do-
have to, or we just have to,
make it a
notice
meeting.
and film it, yeah, I have no
Okay.
problem with that, but
Okay.
it's more legwork.
Why did the meetings, if you can't join virtually, why do you have to
Yeah.
expose it virtually?
Once you create a policy that said, well, we don't have to record it, we don't have to live stream it at all,
So why,
which a lot of entities don't.
can we not do that?
So,
We already have a policy, a video conferencing policy that says that.
So
So
we could rework that policy.
we have to, because we have to have a public hearing. So right now, we're out of compliance anyway.
Okay, all right, well, I just feel like someone wants to show up, they can show up, but I'm not sure why we should be broadcasting it in perpetuity
Yeah.
on the internet.
I'm in favor of having it on YouTube and broadcasted. Because for me, it's an open meetings thing, it's an open government thing, and I'm all for that. That's my
I am
big
too,
draw.
but why couldn't I just come?
Because the reality is people don't.
But then why do we not let people join by Zoom? So that, like, I see them in conflict with each other.
Well, people can join
But
via
they can't
Zoom.
vote.
What do you mean?
Like, if this were a board meeting, Patrick's vote would not actually count. We would have to have enough person in person, right?
Yeah.
And Patrick can participate, but his vote actually doesn't count.
Correct.
Right, so I see the two in conflict with each other, but it's fair enough, we can discuss it another time.
The way the open meetings law is written is for video conferencing to be utilized for the way I read it is for public access and for any extenuating circumstance of board members not being able to be here. Some type of, outlet. And it changes every year, it seems, as the governor constantly updates the law because they refuse to just put a final stamp of approval.
So a fundraising committee meeting would still need to be broadcast?
If
If-
we have multiple board members, after 2 board members, now we have potential to vote on business.
But could we go into executive session? Well, what if we're gonna be talking about people's finances, like, let's say there's someone in town that's very wealthy and we wanna name that person and talk about that person's wealth assessment. I don't really think that we should be doing that in a
no,
public
it
Agreed.
forum.
should. Yeah.
And I think that we may need to have more than 2 people in the meeting to have that conversation. So how do we do that?
We can have more than 2 people, just not board members.
But we are allowed to go into executive session to discuss matters that are not to be broadcast publicly. So why couldn't we do that in a fundraising committee meeting as well?
I think a fundraising committee would be a closed meeting. I think that's the difference.
But you're just saying we would have to broadcast it on YouTube.
Not if we have only 2 board members.
But
Present, or can you do one with?
Can you have 2
And
people
so
that
now
might
I
in?
Teleconference?
No.
They couldn't vote anyway.
Doesn't matter.
there's no voting in a committee, but. So see, it doesn't make sense, right? Because if we wanna have if we wanna have conversations that should not be public, if we're talking about the wealth of someone in this town and their ability to contribute X amount of dollars, that's not something that we should be having in a public forum.
I agree.
So
Maybe we might be talking past each other, but my idea
No,
was
I
that we
understand,
can't have.
I understand what you're saying, but we may need to have more than two people present to have that conversation. So how do we balance the need to have 3 or 4 people in a fundraising meeting with broadcasting information about people that we don't want made public, or them to know that we're talking about them?
We don't have to broadcast if they're not board members.
Right, but they are gonna be board members.
2 people,
But I know, but what if the 3 of us wanna have a conversation, or the 4 of us wanna have a conversation?
that's subject to open meetings law.
Right,
But-
but then you have to go into, I think the answer is you have to
Executive
go into
session.
executive session.
Right. We go into a committee meeting executive session and we turn the broadcast off. That's what I think we have to do.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Gotcha.
Okay, then let's
Okay.
do the,
So let's do that so that we can have the people that we need, we can have the conversations that we need to have, and we're not putting it out on YouTube for someone to hear about.
Yeah,
right.
get pissed off that we're targeting them.
Yeah, well,
What are people's availability? Like, I don't know, like, should we pick a set time where we're doing this?
can I go back all of 1 second? I'm sorry. Just so that we have a completely balanced budget on the income line
Okay, I thought we did.
and the
I thought we had
expense
done-
line.
I thought we had done that by,
When we increased the donation line to 55,000,
Yeah.
that now puts us over what our expense line is.
Which then can go into,
It could,
you wanna even?
okay, how much?
133, or excuse me, 233, 177. Would be, so it would be $44,277 for the
Great,
donation.
well, that's gonna make you happy.
Make them.
Fine, make
I-
him
I
happy,
just-
make him
Make him
happy, Allison
happy.
has to leave.
Allison has to leave.
Oh, that's
Make-
right.
Make him
Sorry.
happy,
okay.
Yes,
make it
that
whatever
works for
number
me.
he wants it to be.
54.
If it's. if
Whatever
it's
Carrie
less-
wants, whatever Carrie thinks we can get. I'm cool with
Are we
it.
done?
I think we're done.
Okay.
Motion
I
to
think we're
adjourn
gonna motion to adjourn second.
at 16:03.
Bye, Patrick.
Bye,
Bye,
Patrick.
people.
Okay.
But you got it.